Halloween's not over yet, folks. Not until I say it is. Get ready for part 2 of your best scares of childhood. Number 8.
Poor dear. After all these years, maybe that old rabbit will bring her around.
Time for another trip down the rabbit hole. This time we have American McGee's Alice, brought to you by our very own Mr. Coat.
Hello there. My experience with this game and how it scared me in my younger days is rather unique. Why? Because I've never actually played American McGee's Alice.
Oh, hang on a second, dude. I never fancied you as much of a gamer, but you mean to tell me that you submitted this as your entry and you never actually played it?
Nope. Rather than the gameplay, it was the cover that freaked me out. Hey, that was as scary as cover. The game itself could be rather tameful, I know, but whoever designed that cover certainly tried to give it the right macabre atmosphere. Considering I was more used to the Disney version, this was like a whole other world entirely to me.
Okay. I see Wednesday Addams Alice looking at me, giving me the Kubrick stare with a bloody butcher knife. It looks like there's a heart shape around hell if hell was filled with mushrooms. Why is that cat looking at me?
Because I think he's pondering what you'll taste like. He's all skeletal with a giraffe-like neck. He's making Garfield look healthy by comparison. And as for Alice, why would she need a knife? Covered in blood, no less. Unless that's juice from Wonderland's wide assortment of weird mushrooms. Contrasting with the Disney Alice I'm more familiar with, or even the Care Bears one for that matter, it was strange at a young age to see this classic literary figure depicted in such a deadly and stoic manner.
And I've actually played a little bit of the game myself. Once you get past the creepy box cover, you're introduced to a crazy, psychotic wonderland that exists in the mind of a now mentally disturbed Alice who must hack and slash her way through a new world that's nowhere near as innocent as when she left it. As for the Cheshire Cat, he serves the role of a mentor, giving you advice all throughout the game.
You've gone quite mangy, Cat, but your grin's a comfort.
No, it's not.
Rabbit knows a thing or two, and I myself don't need a weather vane to tell which way the wind blows.
The voice of the Treasure Cat is Roger Jackson. He's probably most recognized as playing Mojo Jojo in the Powerpuff Girls. However, he also played a role so chilling that not even his co-stars are aware who he is.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Why do I get the feeling the Treasure Cat's favorite scary movie is Pet Sematary? Of course, that's not the only connection to the Scream franchise. Wes Craven was set to direct a film adaptation with Sarah Michelle Gellar in the lead, with Tim Burton's usual screenwriter, John August, working on the script. But it never came to fruition and was stuck in development hell for a while.
I guess that would have been the second time that Craven would have killed Geller.
Who knows? Maybe it would have been better than the average video game adaptation, considering they also had a book to work from, albeit a book with the same adaptation difficulties as a video game.
Ah! What the heck was that about?
Yeah, I can't understand for the life of me why that just happened either. Jump scare.
I've also been told that the legacy of this game includes having a certain influence on the Tim Burton version, which despite all odds, I actually kind of liked, even though it's a film, not without its flaws. So if you have a bone to pick with that movie, you can probably blame this game. Me, I'll have to finish it one of these days to get a full opinion on it. One thing I'm sure of though, this game is chilling my piss.
Yep, I like the Tim Burton one too, even if it doesn't quite reach the nonsensical nature of the source material. But that's hard to portray in the movie anyway. However, I wonder how this video game compares to the book.
Sorry, Mr. Coat, we're not doing a From Pages to Pictures on Alice in Wonderland right now. If we did that, we'd never get to the next entry. The last bit of this Alice's legacy includes Alice Madness Returns, which was released in 2011. And I haven't played that one either, but I might give it a shot depending on my experience with this game. Still, this is a rabbit hole most people wish not to venture down with a faint heart. I am so gonna spay your ass!
How scary is it? As scary as Johnny Depp dancing the Futterwacken.
Let's get it on.
You don't give a what, we don't give a what. Get it on the floor, get it on the floor. Get it on the floor, get it on the floor. You don't wanna party, then you gotta go. You don't wanna party, then you gotta go.
Number 7.
So remember, boys and girls, safety first.
Number 7 is The Crypt Keeper, brought to us by our personal Mr. Coat and Friends in-house EC Comics expert, South Jersey Sam.
EC Comics expert? Hardly. I know a few things here and there about the comics, though. But yes, my childhood fear came from the infamous HBO series Tales from the Crypt. And let me tell you, at the time, he was a lot more frightening than a 7-foot wrestler.
Oh, don't tell that to Duke. So, how old were you when this guy first appeared on the scene?
2 or 3 at least.
I was scared of Mr. Boogedy when I was that age. Your parents let you watch this?
Well, technically, no. I actually sneaked out of my room and took a glance of the show from afar. And this was the opening sequence, too. So the moment he popped out of his crypt, I ran back to my room and went back to sleep. Surprisingly, I had no nightmares about the character.
Serves you right for being such a naughty boy, Samwise, said the guy who was watching The Terminator when his folks were out.
Well, the interesting thing about this series was how it was the first show to have featured graphic horror violence outside of horror films and without any sort of censorship. And to help keep within the style of the comic the series was based on, they created a host based on the original character from the aforementioned comic series. And while he was completely different compared to his comic book counterpart, they kept his dialogue similar to what he would say, using cryptic puns to enhance the mood.
This one's a real shocker.
Now she'll know what's eating him. She is. Care for a little shriek preview?
I envy these writers. I mean, think about it. They get paid to write that stuff, and us web critic types, we're supposed to do this stuff for you guys for free. I do have a memory or two to share myself of this ghoulish monster man. Back in the early 90s, they had a version of this show called Tales from the Crypt Keeper. You know, the one where they painted him green to make him a little bit more kid-friendly. The episode in question was the mummy story, This Wraps It Up. I was told by my best friend at the time that once you get past the show's intro, nothing else really happens. And then I saw this. It was much more frightening to a 7-year-old.
While the cartoon series was kid-friendly compared to the original HBO series, it still had a few scary moments, while also going for a bit of humor in certain stories. But what made the Crypt Keeper more memorable was his appearance in the original series.
Any other standout moments you recall?
While aside from the cartoon series, I was surprised to know that there was even a game show based on the series, which took place inside the Crypt Keeper's mansion. But this was one of the many projects that was part of his popularity at the time.
A game show? What, do the contestants try to see who among them can get a comeuppance first?
Like I said, I never even heard of the show. What I do know is that it was filmed at Universal Studios Florida and had both the involvement of John Kassir, the voice of CK himself, and Jack Wool, who was the president of TFTC Productions and helped milk the popularity of the Crypt Keeper and the series itself.
Oh, so it's another Double Dare clone. Well, looks like it could be fun.
You know what to do. Keep your hands up. Protect those headstones. Comprende?
Comprende.
Hey, wait a minute.
Okay.
I know that scream.
It sure is worth crapping your pants.
No way. This show predicted my scream. As is inevitable for anything this popular, the Crypt Keeper also brought his particular brand of scares to the big screen with 2 movies, Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood. Other films were planned, but since the popularity of the Crypt Keeper character as a whole was starting to fade around that time, those projects were abandoned and some of them actually found the light of day as other movies.
But as the years rolled by, people wondered if old CK will ever come back. Well, he did make a few appearances here and there, however, they weren't exactly good. What do I mean, you ask? Well, let's take a look at one of his appearances on Kids WB.
Here's holiday tip number 93. On a cold day, make sure to cruel up by the fire with a worm blanket and make scared to have a cup of hot apple cider.
I guess they had just enough money to bring John Cassier back into the recording booth, but nothing else, right?
Ooh, but it's not over yet. If you thought that was bad, here's what happens when they try to shoehorn him into another movie called Ritual.
What's up, my people? Welcome to Jamaica, man.
Nice hair.
Ain't that cool? On me they call this deadlocks.
Okay, I know political correctness is destroying this country, but what?
Sadly, this puppet is still being used to this very day. But despite the crappy puppet effects of today, his hosting duties on the series is still more enjoyable to watch. It also helps that both the HBO series and the cartoon series now have a new home on FearNet.
So to wrap things up, he's never really disappeared, just slipped under the radar. Well, that's fine, just so long as they learn to start freshening up that puppet a little more often. That crazy laugh will always be there wherever there are tales of wayward souls.
How scary is it? About as scary as people acting as dummies on Halloween, hoping to scare kids when they reach for candy.
Number 6.
Our next entry is the often overlooked Prehistoric Beast, courtesy of an up-and-coming talent in the world of web reviewing, the philosopher of animation.
Salutations, everyone. I am that up-and-coming talent you just heard about.
So tell me, how does this particular scare work for you?
Well, what kid out there hasn't been fascinated by the terrible lizards that once roamed planet Earth long before God conceived humans? For me, the only books, movies, computer games, and television documentaries I ever wanted to see involved dinosaurs. In some of them, including the computer game Microsoft Dinosaurs, the Eyewitness Dinosaur video, and the PBS series The Dinosaurs, certain clips featuring a monoclonius getting stalked by a Tyrannosaurus would often pop up.
Hang on now, I think I know where you're going with this. You mean to tell me that those were the same clips used in every special?
Yep.
And they were all from Prehistoric Beast?
Yep.
Okay, good to know we're on the same page. Continue.
Every time I saw those clips, it was just one of several moments that fascinated me so much, yet at the same time gave me chills like none other. You know what made a certain 1993 mega blockbuster such a massive success and had dinosaur fans going crazy about what they saw on the big screen? Well, most of this was thanks to the hard work and dedication of the film's dinosaur consultant and visual effects supervisor, Phil Tippett. However, it wasn't technically the first time he would use these techniques so masterfully.
Phil Tippett's 1985 animated short, Prehistoric Beast, was the film that would go on and give Tippett some notoriety in the film world. It's a very simple setup with a plant-eating dinosaur, a monoclonius, being stalked by a T-Rex.
Say again? We have a T-Rex.
You remember all the suspense built up on how we didn't see that Tyrannosaurus until halfway into Jurassic Park? It's also present here. The short introduces a brief appearance of the Tyrannosaurus, killing a duck-billed dinosaur. Now imagine that getting tossed on the car instead of a goat's leg.
Where's the goat?
Now, when you first sent me this video, I remember watching it during lunchtime, right in the middle of the day, and I was just getting chills from it, and I said, yeah, this goes.
Our main protagonist, the monoclonius, wanders away from its herd and enjoys a flowering feast in the forest, where everything is like a typical day in the Great Valley. The peace is disrupted with a stick breaking, the monoclonius alone and calling for help, and the viewer seeing the victim through the Tyrannosaur's eyes, all leading up to...
And now this is it. The moment that all the great creative minds of dinosaur movies past can bow down to. Willis O'Brien, Ray Harryhausen, the makers of Baby Secret of the Lost Legend, they got nothing on this segment that's coming up. The fight that goes on between these two creatures is a terrific use of both stop and go motion that gives the viewer a very engaging experience that I think still holds up. I don't know, it's just something about that stilted, slightly imperfect movement that always gives it that extra bit of creepiness. What do you think?
This sequence, in my opinion, ranks among the crowning achievements in bringing dinosaurs to life with such realism and detail. In the most intense dinosaur fight since the Tyrannosaurus-Stegosaurus brawl in Fantasia, the T-Rex puts up a really good battle and hardly gives the Monoclonius a chance. It gets all over that Monoclonius, and all the Monoclonius does is stab the T-Rex in the leg like a butter knife stabbing jelly. All that does is make our villain even more hungry and rageful. This is what happens when you go into the forest alone without a dinosaur expert like Dr. Grant.
Remind me to thank John for a lovely weekend.
Now, in the period where people were still recovering from Ray Harryhausen's retirement and still not ready to use computer animation, Phil Tippett would use similar techniques used for this short film to create the other stop-motion animated dinosaurs in the 1985 Christopher Reeve documentary, Dinosaur. Now, the big question is, when is Hollywood going to release a feature film like this? By that, I mean no modern dialogue, no narrator, just the natural landscape of prehistoric Earth. Whether it's done in stop motion or computer animation, I don't care. Well, this November, we have a Walking with Dinosaurs movie coming to theaters, and everything looked so promising. Until...
We're packy rhinosaurs. We may not be as scary as a Gorgosaur, but we're way tougher.
The narrator sounds like a bragging athlete.
The true test of a filmmaker is not just the techniques used to make the film, but how good they're used. Prehistoric Beast may be outdated, but so is The Terminator, and that's still a great movie. That's going to show so long as we can still engross ourselves in the world that a movie takes us to, and hopefully still get our pants scared off in the process. That's all that really matters.
How scary is it? About as scary as standing on a rock, sinking into lava, while breaking up with your girlfriend over a cell phone, and dodging hail meteorites.
Number 5.
In my 7th life, I was a laboratory animal. To this day, every time I see a test tube, I throw up.
Certain segments of Garfield, His 9 Lives. Yes, a scary Garfield cartoon. Brought to us by the one and only Animat. Yo, Animat, where you at?
Oh, jeez! Hey, dude! Could you hold on a sec? Hey, man, what's up?
Cramming for the big show, I take it?
Yeah, I wanted to do a cleanup around the place, and I decided to organize my books. I forgot about all the Garfield comics that I had when I was a kid. Truly nostalgic.
Yeah, it seems like even everyone's favorite fat cat in all of his years of entertaining audiences, both young and old, has a few scares up his sleeve as well. Some of which include one infamous story of Garfield waking up lonely in a disheveled house that looks like his home after a tornado hit it, and author Jim Davis jokingly implying that John's old roommate Lehman is buried somewhere in the basement.
Yeah, true. Not to mention stuff like Garfield's Halloween Adventure, where Garfield and Odie enters a house that has treasure, and the ones who are looking for it are pirate ghosts. Sounds stupid at first, but when you see the execution, it has a pretty frightening tone.
Judgment pending on that one. Point is, when you have something that's typically light-hearted family fare and the author suddenly decides to take it in another direction, whether it's adult-oriented, action-oriented, or scare-oriented, it usually takes the viewer by surprise and creates something that's maybe even more than what the author intended.
True, and I think with Garfield, none can be a better example than the comic Garfield, His 9 Lives, specifically in his 7th life, entitled Primal Self. Arguably, you could say that the fifth life, lab animal, is another one that gives out a more dark tone, but none can deny that it's primal self the one that sends more chills to people's spines.
9 Lives was pretty much an experiment put on by the folks at Paws Inc. to see what kind of different directions they could take the Garfield name in, not all of which were necessarily child-friendly, which is why we have cussing scattered about in certain story areas, and one story in which Garfield is a detective solving a murder case with some rather adult implications.
The direction in which they put Garfield into went pretty much all over the place. Babes and Bullets went into a more adult tone, while segments like Cave Cat and Exterminators take a more comedic approach we all recognize from the comics.
When it came to make this compilation a TV special like the other Garfield stories...
Wait, are you doing another one of those from Pages to Pictures?
Okay, just this once, but only because it's relevant. Of the 2 more bizarre comics, Lab Cat was the only one that made it to TV.
There are actually some segments that didn't make it in the TV special, most likely due to time constraints. Not just Primal Self, but also the Vikings, the Exterminators, and Babes and Bullets. But to be fair, the last one did end up getting its own Emmy Award-winning TV special. Instead, they end up getting family-friendly segments like King Cat, Court Musician, Stunt Cat...
Whoa.
What the fridge is that?
We're losing the audience. Come on, let's get to the scares.
Oh, crap! Oh, wait, hold on. Let me think. Wait, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I got it!
What was that?
That was our favorite fat feline in Primal Self.
Whoa. Okay, scratch that, rewind. Lab Cat plays out less like a Garfield story and more like The Secret of Nim. Here we have a case of Garfield escaping from a testing facility, and it all goes fully Plague Dogs for about 5 minutes until he undergoes a most peculiar transformation. The artwork and style is more dark and realistically proportioned than anything else the franchise had seen and makes it stand out in one's memory, particularly in the special. As for Primal Self...
Tigger. Come play with Mama. Hello, Jason. Ow, fudge, nabbit.
Okay. I'd like to be very clear about the type of horror that this comic has just subjected us to. The last 2-page panel shows us Garfield jumping up on Grandma like she was prey. What makes this horrifying is that we have to think about what happens next, and basically, that means this comic is telling us Garfield has killed Grandma.
Another element that makes it scary is the notion that Garfield is capable of killing someone. We all know that he wouldn't eat a mouse, but the fact that he would rip apart an old lady to death seems like the last thing we would think Garfield would do. It's pretty common to feel scared when we see a beloved character or something that seems to be more associated with bringing joy to suddenly become more dark and gruesome and do things we'd never thought they could do, like murder. How scary is it? About as scary as dropping an iPhone into a beaker of sulfuric acid, while your boss is on the other line.
Let's call it off, guys. We'll never find him now.
Coming up next, David Rose and Y-Boy give us their top scares, and the doorway to number 1 is finally revealed. Stay tuned for part 3 of your best scares of childhood.